Hi, it's great to be with you today, and it's an opportunity to think a little bit about the Gospel of John and the wedding at Cana. I hope you've had a chance, perhaps if you're listening to this for the Sunday service on the 24th of January, that you've had a chance to listen to or read our readings for today, particularly the wedding at Cana in John 2 and also the Revelation reading. Because here we are in the dark days of January. Here we are, and what are our readings about? They're about joy. And oh my goodness, don't we need some joy at the moment? And when I just thought about joy, one of the things that just came to mind was one of those really old songs from way back when in 1979, but one that's still played by Ian Drury, called Reasons to be Cheerful, Part 3. And I've made a note of a few things that Ian Drury wrote down in that song, in those reasons to be cheerful. And they're quite an interesting list, actually. It's a very long list, and I won't go through all of it. Some of them aren't repeatable, as you can imagine. But one of them's a cure for smallpox. Sort of rather relevant for us now, isn't it? A cure. Something a little bit prophetic about that back in 1979. Another one is carrot juice. May be good if you're doing January or dry January. Yellow socks. Not sure I'd put those down on the reasons to be cheerful list personally. Self-education. Something to think about and read. I'm not sure any parents who are involved in home ed would particularly want to put that down. And wine, especially claret. Wine. Very relevant for today's reading, isn't it? In fact, we could call today's story, The Wedding at Cana, Reasons to be Cheerful, Part 1. It's a great title for that. I've actually always loved the fact that one of Jesus's first appearances, well, his first appearance as an adult in terms of miracles, is at a party. Sometimes we are so focused on, particularly in the context of the miracles, on the healing miracles, on need and on the need people had for Jesus, that we forget the joy, don't we? But the thing is, the whole point about Jesus is that he came to bring life and life in abundance. So joy is actually at the real heart of what we're brought to through the Gospels and through the stories of Jesus' life. The miracle only appears in John's Gospel, and it's one of what's known as the 7 signs. And if you look at verse 11, you'll see that word sign is actually referred to. And the whole point is that the 7 signs are unpacking for us something really fundamental about Jesus, his character, and what he's brought for us. It's not the only time that the Bible talks about feasts and wine, and we're going to come back to that. But let's just back up a bit and go back to the beginning of the story, because this is a story about a simple village wedding 2,000 years ago. And I'd just like to imagine perhaps a little bit what was going on there. Just imagine it. Mary's one of the group of mums helping out the mother of the bride. She's probably in the kitchen at the village hall, probably doing the washing up. One of the group of people who would have been part of making this celebration of a young couple's starting out in life really happen. Something sadly we've missed so much in this time of pandemic, isn't it? Going to a large wedding and being part of that. And she's in the kitchen, so she knows what's going on, and she knows that the wine's about to run out, and she doesn't want the joy to run out. She's in the middle of a party It's something that brings affirmation and positivity to everyone. And she doesn't want it to end. So what does she do? Something spurs her on to ask Jesus to do something about it. It's something about parents, isn't it? They know us almost better than we know ourselves, particularly as young men and women, where perhaps we're not so certain of our place in life and of our path in life. But our parents, they know us. And how does Jesus respond? He says, "My hour has not yet come." But one of the jobs of the parent, of the grandparent, of the mentor, the teacher, is to call out the gold in us. And that's what Mary is doing here. She's calling out the gold. This is Mary, who has lived through Jesus' life with him, who has those prophecies and the extraordinary memories of the time of his birth. The mother who brought up a child who lost himself in the temple with the scriptures and the teachers. The mother who will have seen her child grow through teenage years to grow towards the destiny that he's going to be called into. And I'm sure during those teenage and young adult years, she will have seen that gold developing. She will have seen extraordinary things, or the possibility of extraordinary things. And somehow in this moment, she knows it's time to call it out. And Jesus, like so many of us, has a moment where he's unsure. This is not my time. Now, doesn't that happen so often? We spend years training, or we are familiar with something, we know we can step out into it, and yet something in us says, whoa, not at the moment, not now, not yet. But Mary calls out the gold, and Jesus steps into his destiny. And the destiny that's being revealed in this miracle is the destiny of bringing joy. And just going back to that point I made earlier, that whole metaphor of wine is something that he would have been very, very familiar with, and so would all of his contemporaries, because it's something the Old Testament uses very much to talk about the end times and the times when God will intervene in this world, where he will bring us to a place of feasting and of presence with God. And here's God, Jesus, stepping into this world, bringing that presence into this world. And that metaphorical wine is becoming a physical person who we can know. And the reason we can know is that he sent the Holy Spirit. That's what he said when he ascended into heaven. I go so that the Comforter, the Counselor, will come, and each of us can know him in the same way, same but different, that his contemporaries would have known him as he turned that water into wine. And he comes to bring us joy. He comes to bring us life in its fullness. Because as we connect with that Holy Spirit, we too can be part of that joy, can join in that joy. If you're not feeling the joy at the moment, and hey, that's perfectly fine, because it's hard. Maybe it's worth taking a little bit of time to go through those reasons to be cheerful, part 3. What are your reasons to be cheerful? We all have some, even if on a day when we look outside